My mother-in-law blaming me for not having kids, determined to kick me out with nothing. On my divorce day, she proudly showed me the ultrasound of Wesley's pregnant girlfriend in response. I calmly revealed his premarital medical report, Wesley Wick male, diagnosed with congenital azoospermia. I don't want a man who can't have children, I said, watching their smiles fade. Wesley and I met in college and got together after graduation. After graduation, my salary wasn't high, barely enough to make ends meet, so we had to rent a shabby unfinished apartment. Wesley and I worked at the same company. After work, he would drive me home, and during holidays, he would give me little gifts. If nothing else, he would at least take me out for hamburgers. I grew up in the shadows of neglect, my parents absent, and my childhood devoid of wealth or stability. The only beacon in my turbulent life was my grandmother. As a child, others would say I was a wild child that Grandma picked up. I never believed them. After Grandma passed away, I had no home, so I envied those who did. Because I lacked love growing up, I became increasingly dependent on Wesley. When we were dating, he was gentle and considerate, always taking care of my feelings, never looking down on my family or background. I was young and mistook his cheap kindness for love. When he proposed, he promised to give me a happy and fulfilling family. I was overjoyed and married him. Once we were engaged, Wesley's relatives made their opinions known, snickering behind my back. They called me a wild chicken trying to be a phoenix, hinting at my questionable origins, and even suggesting I might be carrying some mysterious illness. They insisted on a premarital medical checkup. I took a deep breath and pushed aside my pride, swallowing the sting of their words for Wesley's sake. When the results came out, it turned out that Wesley had congenital azoospermia, meaning we wouldn't be able to have children, and there was no cure for it. I cherished our relationship and loved him deeply, so I chose to keep it a secret to protect his feelings. I wanted to live a good life with him, and I thought that as long as we loved each other, it didn't matter if we couldn't have children, we could always adopt one if we wanted. That was my thinking, but others didn't see it that way. After we got married, my mother-in-law made my life difficult in every possible way. She started by insisting that I quit my job to have a child and be a stay-at-home wife. At first I refused, but Wesley persuaded me, promising that he would earn money to support us while I stayed at home, beautiful and carefree. I believed his sweet words, quit my job, and became a full-time housewife. But what awaited me after marriage was endless grievances and heartache. Every morning, I woke up to cook, and after cooking, I would wash clothes, mop the floor, and wash the dishes after eating. After cleaning up, just as I was about to rest, my mother-in-law would throw a pile of underwear at me. This wasn't the first time she had asked me to wash her undergarments. With a weary sigh, I looked at her and said, "Mom, undergarments and other personal clothing are meant to be washed by the wearer. It's not my place to handle such private matters." She was busy texting someone to come over and play mahjong and looked up at me with a glare. "If I tell you to wash it, then wash it. Where do you get so much nonsense?" I refused. I threw the basin into the bathroom and went back to my room to change the bed sheets. My mother-in-law started cursing loudly in the living room. "So now you think you're tough? Did we marry you to treat you like a queen? Look in the mirror. Do you really think you're goddess? Get out here and wash those clothes, or I'll call my son to teach you a lesson." I couldn't take it anymore. "I married into your family, but I wasn't sold to you. I didn't take a penny of dowry when I married. If you want a maid, hire one." I slammed the door and cried on the bed. My mother-in-law called Wesley, playing the victim. When he came home, he dragged me out of bed. "Diana, apologize to Mom." Every time we argued, he always sided with his mother. "Why should I apologize? What did I do wrong? She bullies me, and you want me to apologize?" I wiped away my tears and turned away from him. My mother-in-law also came into the room, her words biting. "I told you not to marry her, and look, it hasn't been long, and she's already trying to dominate me." Wesley pushed her out of the room. "All right, Mom, enough. I'll talk to her." He handed me a tissue to wipe my tears. "Diana, Mom is old, and she has a heart condition. You're so magnanimous, you should be more accommodating, right? Just go and make peace with her." He knew I was soft-hearted and wouldn't hold a grudge against his mother, so he coaxed me into apologizing. But little did he know, the more I let it slide, the more she bullied me. One night my period came, and I stained the bed in my pajamas. I got up, took off my pajamas, and left them in the bathroom, thinking I'd wash them the next day since it was so late. The next morning, I was woken up by my mother-in-law yelling. She didn't even knock before barging in and throwing the bedsheets at me. "Get up and wash this. Isn't it disgusting?" I was in pain. "Mom, my stomach hurts. Let me rest for a bit, and I'll wash it later." She went berserk and dragged me out of bed. "How dare you say your stomach hurts? It's been so long and you still haven't gotten pregnant." The blanket was yanked off, and I was left with nothing to wear. I covered my chest and picked up the blanket, feeling like my dignity had been trampled on. My tone grew cold. "I'm going to get dressed and wash the sheets. please leave. Luckily, her phone rang, saving us from a full-blown argument. My mother-in-law had arranged another mahjong game with her relatives. As I hung clothes on the balcony, I overheard her relatives gossiping inside. Your daughter-in-law still hasn't gotten pregnant? Who knows? No sign of it yet. Could she be infertile? Exactly. My daughter got pregnant right after getting married, and now the baby's already over a year old. Maybe you should try some folk remedies. My mother-in-law glanced at me with a sneer. I bet she's just a chicken that can't lay eggs. What kind of mother-in-law would joke about her daughter-in-law like this? I couldn't stand listening any longer. I called Wesley several times, but he didn't pick up. When he got home, his mother immediately pulled him aside to whisper. When he came back to our room, I wanted to talk to him, but he was busy texting on his phone. I tried to grab his phone, and he snapped at me. Stop making trouble. I'm busy with work. I was taken aback. What work do you have to do at home? If I don't work, what will you eat and drink? All the money in this house comes from my hard work. All you do is spend money. You can't even take care of my mom. I couldn't believe what he was saying. What money have I spent? Apart from groceries and living expenses, what have I used? Your mom bullies me every day, and you say I haven't taken care of her. I'm tired. I don't want to argue. He turned away to sleep. I cried silently. I couldn't sleep the whole night. After that I stopped complaining to Wesley about his mother. There was no point. He would never take my side. I endured for over 6 months just to keep a semblance of a home. But Wesley's frequent late returns from work made me suspicious. He would always come home and immediately grab his phone, sometimes with a doting smile, which he would quickly hide if I noticed. One day I followed Wesley in a taxi. He went to a high-end residential area where I couldn't get in, so I waited downstairs. After a while, Wesley came out with a woman whose belly was slightly swollen. They got into a car, and I hurriedly followed them to a hospital. When they got out, I saw the woman's face clearly. It was his cousin, Sally Roon. I didn't understand why she needed her cousin to accompany her for a prenatal checkup. Just as I was about to follow them into the hospital, my phone rang. It was the police station. Hello, is this Diana Helm? Yes, this is she. How can I help you? Well, earlier, a blood test you had matched with a missing girl's parents at a 99% rate. Could you come in when you have time to discuss this? I was shocked and forgot all about Wesley and Sally. I rushed to the police station. Before Grandma passed away, she told me that we were not related by blood, and that she had found me on her way back from the city after buying medicine. She was all alone, so she brought me back. Grandma also gave me a pendant that was around my neck when she found me, saying it was the proof to reunite with my biological parents. If these people were indeed my real parents, they would recognize this pendant. At the police station, I handed over the pendant and explained the situation. Soon, a luxury car pulled up, and a plump, well-dressed woman got out. When she saw the pendant, she cried and hugged me tightly. Isabel, I'm your mother, my dear Isabel. It turned out my real name was Isabel Gade. My eyes welled up, and I hugged her tightly. Then a middle-aged man got out of the car, and I was stunned. It was Frank Gade, the CEO of the company where Wesley worked. I couldn't believe I was the long-lost daughter of the Gade family. My mother explained that I had wandered off as a child and never returned. They had searched for me for years but never found me. Grandma and I had always lived in the countryside, where information was scarce, so it was difficult to locate me. After Grandma passed, I came to the city to finish college while working part-time. My biological parents wanted to take me home, but I told them I was married, and needed to share the good news with my husband and bring him along. My mother agreed, gave me their contact information, and sent me back to the neighborhood. I walked home excited to give Wesley a surprise, but as soon as I reached the door, I heard a conversation that tore my heart apart. Sign this agreement immediately. My mother-in-law's voice came from inside. Mom, how do I explain this to her? I'm afraid she'll cling to me. My mother-in-law cursed. What are you afraid of? You're the only male heir of the Wick family, and we're counting on you to carry on the family line. Besides, you've already gotten Sally pregnant. Are you not going to give her a proper status? That's when I realized there was another woman crying inside. No wonder Wesley had been sneaking around lately. He was hiding an affair, and the mistress was his cousin. I clearly remembered that Wesley was infertile, so there was no way he could have gotten her pregnant. I quickly went back to the hospital, pulled up the medical records, and confirmed with the doctor that his condition was congenital and incurable. My mother-in-law called me, telling me to come home immediately because there was something to discuss. I put the medical report in my bag, feeling a mix of emotions. This was getting more and more interesting. I entered the house, and only my mother-in-law was sitting on the sofa. I looked around, but Wesley and that mistress were nowhere to be seen. My mother-in-law threw a document at me and kept yelling, "Hurry up and sign it. The Wick family has had only one male heir for 3 generations. We can't keep a hen that can't lay eggs." I picked up the agreement and took a glance. How heartless. I had sacrificed my career and best years to marry a man who couldn't have children. I resigned from my job to become a full-time full-time housewife, enduring endless humiliation just to keep the family harmonious and happy. And now, after my husband cheated on me, my mother-in-law despised me for not being able to have children, and wanted to kick me out with nothing. I wiped away the tears from the corners of my eyes and started laughing. My mother-in-law was startled. What are you laughing at? I looked at Wesley's signature on the divorce agreement, noticing how hastily he had signed it. I stared coldly at her. What am I laughing at? I'm laughing at the fact that I didn't go downstairs to buy some firecrackers to celebrate leaving your family. When he proposed, he swore he would love me forever, protect me, and give me a happy life. And now he's treating me so cruelly. My mother-in-law was furious, pointing her finger at me. Say that again. I swatted her hand away. You're not my mother, and I won't tolerate you any longer. Do you want me to sign this or not? She didn't say another word, and put her hand down, probably afraid that I wouldn't sign it. I signed the divorce agreement, then looked up at her and said, "Tell Wesley to come back so we can go finalize the divorce right now." She hadn't expected me to agree so quickly. For the first time, she spoke to me with a somewhat decent attitude. All right. A wise person knows when to give in. I'll call him right now." How ironic. A while later Wesley called me to come downstairs. I took the agreement and went down. As soon as I opened the car door, I saw Sally sitting in the front passenger seat. "Wesley, what's the meaning of this? You're bringing her along to disgust me during our divorce?" I asked coldly. "Sally is pregnant and needs someone to take care of her. She gets nauseous in the back seat, so you should sit in the back," he replied, not daring to look me in the eye. It was laughable. If he hadn't mentioned the pregnancy, it might have been better. He still didn't know about his congenital azoospermia. He thought he was cheating on me, but in reality, she was cheating on him. This was karma. It's true that justice eventually catches up with everyone. Sally began to speak. "Please don't be upset. Wesley and I are truly in love. I'm sorry." Unbelievable. I hadn't even started crying, and Sally was already playing the victim. "I can't accept your apology. Your face isn't thick enough to carry the weight of your actions." Wesley squeezed her hand. "Sally, don't apologize. The fault lies with me, not you. You're innocent, don't stress yourself." Were they seriously putting on a tragic love drama in front of me? I sarcastically commented. "How many months along are you? Are you sure the baby is Wesley's?" Sally visibly hesitated for a moment. Of course it's Wesley's. Just because you can't have children doesn't mean you should question the child I'm carrying." Wesley frowned and looked at me through the rearview mirror. "Diana, you've had trouble conceiving, and Mom is anxious to have a grandchild. If you're angry, take it out on me, not on Sally." "So, after cheating on me, he's now blaming me for everything? How shameless." "So, you're saying it's my fault that I couldn't get pregnant? Did I force you to do something dirty with your cousin behind my back?" Sally jumped in. "Please don't argue with Wesley. It's all my fault. I've always liked him, and I'm the one who seduced him. I wasn't falling for her act. So you're admitting you're cheap enough to seduce someone else's husband?" "Sally, ignore this shrew," Wesley snapped, growing more impatient. The two of them were acting as if I was the one who had ruined their relationship. The car finally stopped in front of the Civil Affairs Bureau. After we finalized the divorce, Wesley handed me $100, as if he was giving me charity. "Take this for a taxi. I won't be driving you anywhere. Let's part on good terms." I slapped his hand away. "Who's parting on good terms with you? Your mother bullied me all the time, and I endured it for the sake of our relationship. She called me a hen that can't lay eggs, and you never defended me. Now you've brought your mistress home, and you're taking her with us to finalize the divorce. Do you have any shame?" His face grew darker and angrier. "If you weren't infertile, why haven't you gotten pregnant? Aren't you just feeling guilty and afraid of what people will say? With your poor background, who would want you? You look so pathetic every day that just seeing you makes me sick." Sally laughed and pulled Wesley back into the car. "All right, Wesley, don't bother with her anymore." I held back my anger, called my mom to let her know I was safe, and then took a taxi home to get a good night's sleep. The next day, I told my parents everything that had happened. My father was so furious that he slammed his hand on the table. "Linda, get the car ready. How dare he treat my daughter this way?"